So, Newbie Drone, the company that makes those tiny drones that crash into the wall every 3 minutes and go. They recently devised an ingenious way of avoiding that happening by planting the drone to the ground on 4 wheels. They've called it the B-Cart and include a full guide on how to make it, 3D printed parts, custom code to run on your drone's computer, and if you're like me, a good reason to do anything but actually fly your drone. Looking at this, my first thought was, damn, that removes an entire axis to lose control on. But my second thought was, can we make a stupidly overpowered FPV RC car by doing the same thing with a 5-inch drone? Now, first, I need to understand what these Newbie drone cars are like. So I bought one of their kits and printed out the parts from their website. The mainframe was printed in a stiff material, and the wheels were printed in this squishy filament, printed completely hollow so they behave like real tires.
Look how squishy it is.
Mounting the drone components to the frame was actually pretty simple. Tiny drones are made of just 5 parts. They've got the flight controller that also holds the camera, and then the 4 motors. Next, I uploaded the custom code, and this controls the steering. Now, most cars and buses turn by pivoting the front wheels. Logical, effective, and has been working since forever. But this little guy uses something called skid steering, not to be confused with this maneuver, which we'll get to at the end of this video. This is pretty much how tanks turn. Basically, you turn by spinning one side faster than the other. Right motor's faster, it goes left. Left motor's faster, it goes right. As for controls, left stick up and down gives you throttle, as usual. Right stick side to side controls the turning. Simple enough. So I took it to a car park to test it out. And honestly, it just works. The thing was drifting around in a really controlled way, the steering felt intuitive, and driving FPV was surprisingly smooth. It was one of those rare moments in FPV where everything just worked. And now that I had a general idea of how the B-Cart worked, it was time to start building my own. And the first step is the frame, or I guess the chassis. So I jumped into Fusion and started modeling the car. Something wide enough for stability, but low enough to keep it from tipping over on corners, and hopefully strong enough to survive whatever I was about to put it through. Now, I realized pretty quickly that it couldn't be as big as I wanted it to be, since the printer I have has a maximum build area of 18 centimeters by 18 centimeters. Since there's going to be a good amount of power going through the car, we want to print it in one piece, so every part is going to be limited to that. And yes, I know what you're thinking, wouldn't it be easier to just buy an RC car and use that? And although that is correct, that would imply that I use my drone for flying, and we can't have that. So this is going to be the frame of the car, at least the first iteration of it. So we'll take all the supports off. And our donor drone is going to be this one, which we're going to dismantle all the components off it and then mount it onto this one. The build began by salvaging the motors from my drone and securing them onto the car frame. So we're definitely going to need to rewire it and not use the race wires. And now that I'm looking at it, wheels are really going to be coming out far from the frame. But I don't think that's going to be an issue. It might just look a bit weird. All right, now I guess we can start taking off the rest of the motors, since that one fit pretty well.
Wash your face and comb your hair. It's a fine time.
Oh crap, a little bit of a design mistake here. The screw doesn't fit. I am sure we could just like melt this down a little. Oh, bad idea. All right, should fit now though. Yeah, sweet. That looks so sick. I don't know why, just like putting wheels on that just looks so sick. The next step is to move the electronics from the drone to the car chassis. All right, ESC and flight controller. Oh, that looks so sick. Following this, we soldered all the necessary cables into the ESC. Oh, this looks so sick. I feel like we're just getting hyped every time I add something onto it. Now, if we look at the design as it is at the moment, there's lots of antennas and the XT60 port at the back and the receiver here that isn't attached to anything. Now, luckily, I did think of that. See, at the back here, I added 2 little squares there, and they're mounting holes for the spoiler. Now, obviously, the spoiler is the most important part of the entire car, but as a secondary function, it also happens to be a convenient spot to put the less important stuff, like the antenna, the receiver, the video transmitter, and the battery. We can worry about that later. For now, let's move on to the wheels. Now, the frame of this car is made out of a material called PETG, which is a material that's very strong, but it also has some flexible characteristics to it, which means that if force is applied to it, it's more likely to flex a little bit instead of just be brittle and snap. Now, on the other side of the scale, you have TPU, and this material is extremely flexible and has a lot of impact resistance. This is what we're going to be using for the wheels. I stuck to a pretty simple design, but I did make it a bit wider than I originally planned. You know what? I don't know how I feel about this. It's as wide as it is long, which kind of makes it look kind of weird. I mean, it still works, and it definitely doesn't look as cool as it did when it didn't have the wheels on. It was a bit more streamlined. But as far as getting a working prototype going, this was enough to see if we could get the controls right. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not too sure what the settings are that are changed to make it work as a car. Now, I did some research in how to turn an FPV drone into a car, and there's a few components to it. First, you need to stop all the flight sensors from interfering. No more auto leveling, no barometer, no gyro tracking to correct things. Basically, you strip it back so the drone doesn't try to fight you every time you try to move forward. Then there's steering, which is the tricky part, but like we talked about earlier, that's done through skid steering. Spin one side faster, the car turns. Simple enough in theory, slightly more chaotic in practice. So I made those changes in Betaflight, tweaked the mixer settings, and reassigned motor outputs, basically just convincing the drone that it's now a tank. I'm just going to strap a battery to the top here. It's enough that we can get a test of if this works. And so I went outside to test it, and damn it, nothing. So I went inside, made some changes, and still, it's just not arming. Nothing. And then I tried looking at how the car was receiving the controls from my remote. Oh, that might be it. That's gonna be it. 3, 2, 1. There's so much power here, okay. But some of the motors weren't spinning the right direction, and that's okay because that's an easy fix. I think that's right. Now, some cars use a bumper at the front of the car to avoid damaging anything important. But I came up with this really unique idea to use the glass lens of the camera instead, which I think is a brilliant idea. It goes forward. Does it turn though? My room was a little too small to see if it was turning, so I tried just holding it and see if the motors change speed when I try to turn. Oh my god, why is it getting faster? Oh gosh. And it appears that it's not. I don't know what to make of that. So I made some more changes, but it was still unclear if it was turning. The thing was accelerating so fast, I couldn't even see what was happening, so I changed something here, and pay attention. I limited the motor output to 10% of usual so it would drive slower. Okay, cool. I'm glad we all saw that happen. Let's continue. Now, this might look like the first actual turn, but it's far from what I would call a controlled turn. I don't think we have enough floor space here to figure out how it's acting. So I think we need to go to a car park with the drone, with the laptop, so we can do adjustments in a space where it can actually drive a bit more than what it's doing at the moment. But we can't go around driving it with all the antennas sticking out of it. So I spent the next day designing and printing the upper frame to enclose all the electronics a bit more. Okay, so we've got the drone all tidied up now, so there's no like cables flying anywhere. And more importantly, we are at a car park. My hope is that we can find some sort of consistent behavior, and then we just adjust the settings in Betaflight to fix that. Now, here's what was happening. When I moved the stick left, it spun out left. Stick right, it spun out right. That was the only thing that felt even remotely consistent. But things started to fall apart when I tried to drive it just straight. It would spin out randomly and sometimes just go the complete opposite direction that I was telling it to go. Okay, why did it do that? It was completely unpredictable. So it seems to be mostly okay, and then it'll do like a random spin every now and then. And then it spun out into a pole and broke. Shoot. It's okay, buddy. So that's the end of that test. I went home and started researching a bit more into differential steering, and that's when I stumbled on another cause of the unpredictability. In the car park, I think it was actually turning how he wanted to, maybe. So with differential steering, if it's not getting enough traction on the ground, then it can spin out, which is what I think what was happening at the car park. But now that we're on the road and there's more traction here, I think it is actually gripping it properly, and it's turning. But it still didn't have enough traction to control it properly. As you can see, I nearly lost the car down a gutter, which at this point felt metaphorically accurate. And that's when it hit me. I think we just need real tires, not 3D printed wheels. I'm looking for tires, like little toy tires. Oh, sick. Oh, mad. Yeah, that's it. Sick. So originally we we're going to 3D print a sort of inner part of it, but these might actually fit around the motors that we have currently. They did not. And not only that, the frame needed more clearance to fit these tires. It's just clipping the frame there. So I printed out a new chassis with bigger clearance, a fix for those screws that we melted in before, and a bumper to the front so we don't smash the camera. I don't know what was wrong with it. I'd watched other people do this, I'd followed their setups, copied their wiring, adjust the same settings they did. I did everything they said to do, but it still wasn't working. The car would drift weirdly, it wouldn't go straight, and the turning was just non-existent. I think the most annoying part was that none of it was consistent. If it was constantly going left or right, or, it wouldn't turn certain directions, that'd be fine. But it's being so unpredictable that it's making it impossible to diagnose what's wrong with it. So I started retracing my steps. I was looking at this other guy who'd done the same thing, and the things he outlined are what I did. Well, except for one thing. Earlier, I'd set a motor output limit of 10%, just to be safe. I didn't want it flying off at full power and slamming into a wall, which ironically we did anyway. But now that I thought about it, that might have been the whole problem all along. See, by capping the throttle at 10%, it wasn't just limiting speed, it was limiting everything. The entire range of control was compressed into the bottom 10% of motor power. So when I told it to turn by spinning one side faster than the other, there just wasn't enough extra power left to do that. Both sides were already at their max of 10%. There was no headroom to adjust, no room for differential steering. And so that night, I removed the motor limit, which also meant I couldn't test it inside. So the next morning, I went out to test it. Oh my god, it's so cold. Okay, I am confident about today's test that it's going to work this time. I'm really thinking that now we're going to be able to steer. Alright, 3, 2, 1. Far out. Oh shoot. A tire fell off. That's cool, that's cool. 3, 2, 1. Now, I know this doesn't look good, but I think it actually steers. It's obviously not driving properly, but it is definitely steering correctly. Yesterday morning, I was gonna give up and just fly my drone. But no, now we can keep avoiding that. Oh, I'm so excited. It's actually working. So we're back at the car park. Whoa, God. Why is there so much conflict in this video? One of the wheel motors just fell off. Luckily, it wasn't anything major and it screwed back on fine. But there was one more change I wanted to make. The battery that my 5-inch drone uses is a 6S battery. These are insanely powerful, and these are the batteries that are capable of doing launches like these. but that is way too much power for an RC car. So I'm going to switch that out for a 3-cell battery, which for reference is half the power of the one that I have here. And that way that should stop this from happening.
And of course, the best part is we can use the goggles with this car, so this time we're going to drive it in FPV.
Dodging all the hate like Olay. I ain't really messing with that bull, ayy. No way, I'll be on my grind every day till my old